a little bit easier is to think about the quote, seeing is believing. We've heard this so many times. We've all grown up with it. It's been used in all sorts of different contexts. And I want to apply it in a new way so that you can have like sort of an a moment around awareness. Because I think what tends to happen is, especially in my client work or when I'm here in the community talking about having awareness, people feel like awareness isn't enough. Like, oh man, now I'm aware of things. Now I'm aware of my patterns. Great. I've done so much work. And there's a lot of like, guilt that comes on once you begin to have awareness, because then you start saying to yourself like, okay, why did I let this go on for so long? Now that I know the awareness, it's like shame sinks in, guilt sinks in, sadness sinks in, upset sinks in, because then you start to think to yourself, you start to should yourself. And as an exhausted empath, you all know that like we tend to should on ourselves more than anybody else, any other group, because we start to say things like, oh, I should have known better. I should have done this differently. I should have seen this sooner. Why did I let this go on for so long? I should have made a different decision. Should. And before you know it, you've got should all over the place. And yeah, I'm going to stop talking about that. But I say this to bring a bit of lightness around a topic that can sometimes be difficult to digest for some individuals. And I want to validate that experience as I validate many things here in the community, because everything that you're doing, any change that you're about to make, any sort of journey that you're on the precipice of, it has to begin with awareness. It's everything. Because if you can't see, or if you can't, look at things from a new perspective, or look at your life from a new perspective, you're probably going to sort of remain in the spiral, taking the same set of steps, doing the same sorts of things. You are right now in the habit of being yourself, which I reference Dr. Joe Dispenza's work very often. And he basically said, like, you have become a habit. This is the habit of what it means to be you. And before I went through my own journey and did my own therapy work, I had become a major habit, and it was a habit of victim mentality, like the world was happening to me, that I had no control, that my life was spinning out, that I couldn't change, that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that it was destined to be exactly how I was in this moment. And one of the most profound learnings that I had when I went through therapy was just being aware of that, being aware that of the role I was playing in keeping myself stuck by continuing to feel like I was powerless in my own life. And again, I had that same experience where I started to feel guilt and shame around it, because it's like, why did I do this? Why didn't I see that I wasn't powerless? Why did I let this go on for so long? And now keep in mind, it took me a long time to go to therapy. I can't even remember what age I was, but I had tried it in the past. It didn't work out. I was like, well, this is stupid. It can never work for me. And again, I had to have an awareness that yes, it could work for me, but I had to be willing to play an active role in my own personal healing. I could not let the influence of the outside world and my environment take precedence over what I wanted to do for myself. So I had to have a moment of awareness that I needed support. And I've talked about this quite often. This is one of the most powerful stories in my own personal journey, was the night, and I'll never forget it, the night I had my major breakdown. It was probably one of my biggest rock bottom moments. I mean, I've had a few of those moments. And I mean, I think when people think of rock bottom, they automatically think of, something that those that struggle with addictions encounter, but that's not necessarily the case. For me, I had a major emotional breakdown, an emotional rock bottom, where I was like, I can't live life like this any longer. I need help. I need support. And that too, if you think about it, it's like seeing is believing. I had to reach that point where I could see for myself that what I was doing wasn't working. I was just spinning my wheels. And to be honest with you, I wasn't really doing anything. I was just accepting everything as the status quo. But at some point you realize, like, I can't accept status quo anymore, because I'm tired of feeling this way. I want to wake up and feel joyful, feel like life is meant to be lived, feel like feel like I'm making progress, feel like I'm healing from the trauma of my past. But like, before you can do that, you have to see the impact. You have to have the awareness around the impact it's having on your own life before you can say, okay, I need to take the next step. And the next step for me, in my case, was I need to find a therapist. And that's exactly what I did, even though it was so fear-filled. I had no idea what was going on, and I always think back, like, as I serve this community in the way that I do, I always think like, man, I wish I had had someone like me at that time, so that I would have kind of sped up that process, because I would have had that awareness sooner. And that's really what my greatest hope is in continuing to serve and continuing to create these videos, to continue creating content, is so that you can have your moment of awareness far sooner than I did. Because, and I mean, you know, if it's part of your story to reach that point of emotional breakdown before you actually take the next step, that's part of your story. But if I can have any influence in terms of making that, you know, having you have that aha moment sooner rather than later, I'm going to do it. Because sometimes you kind of get to that point of absolute discomfort and emotional breakdown before you realize, like, I cannot do this alone. And you might be trying on for size all these things. You might be listening to different podcasts, having self-help books, talking to friends, you know, really trying to do what you can on your own to start to feel this sense of worthiness, to start to embody this sense of worthiness. But there's only so much you can do on your own. And when you get to that point, it's like, I need someone else to support me, because they're going to look at things in my life more objectively, whereas I'm seeing things through my own lens because I'm living this. And it's too hard and it's too much of a challenge for me to continue doing it this way. So that too is awareness. You having that moment where you're like, okay, I've tried to do this on my own, or maybe you haven't tried doing it on your own. Wherever you're at is perfectly fine. You want to meet yourself exactly where you're at in this moment. And no matter which side of the coin you are on, if you've done stuff on your own or you haven't, either way is perfectly fine. It's like that moment of awareness that, no, this makes sense. I need some help here, and that's okay. And even if people, you know, even if supposed to culture tells me there's something wrong with me, even if my friends say therapy doesn't work, even if people have all kinds of opinions, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to do what's right by me. And I'm intuitively feeling that my time has come and I need some additional support. And that's when things really start to move. But it's got to start with that awareness. You have to see it to believe it. And then once you see it, then you can start taking action. And the same thing happens in terms of like when I'm doing my client work within the therapeutic setting. So much of what it takes to be able to release some of the stuff from the past and understand your trauma from new perspectives, and to be able to look at it from a different way and really empower yourself and empower your healing to be able to take control and start to actively make change in your own life, to be able to let go of some of those things, is having an awareness around the pattern of behavior it's caused. And that's just it. When we experience something traumatic, especially if it's happened at quite a young age, you adopt a set of strategies, you adopt a set of mentalities, you adopt a set of patterns of behavior in order to keep yourself safe. And a lot of times you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. Let me give you an example. If you experienced trauma as a child and you had really unpredictable parents, or you never knew if your parents were going to be angry or sad or happy or upset, you might adopt this people pleasing, where you just embody being the good little girl all the time. I'm going to be princess perfect. I'm never going to make a mistake. I'm never going to make anyone angry. I'm never going to rock the boat. I'm never going to speak my opinion. I'm just going to stay silent, and I'm going to stay quiet, and I'm not going to say anything at all, because that way I have the greatest chance of not feeling the wrath of my parents. I have a better chance of feeling happiness and supported and accepted. And then what happens is you continue to bring that along with you throughout your whole life. And before you know it, you're 25 something, 30 years old, 50 years old, no matter what age you notice it, you begin to have an awareness that this people-pleasing behavior is no longer serving you, and you want to break the habit of people-pleasing, but it becomes really difficult because you've committed it to memory. And as you've committed it to memory, it's become then a part of your identity. So the work that you're doing within a therapeutic session is kind of safely going back in time. And I say this word safety because I think that's really important when you're working with anybody, a coach, counselor, therapist, whatever the case may be, that you feel safe enough to be able to go there. Because a lot of it is exploring some of those instances and some of those things that have happened in your past that have caused harm, that have left emotional wounding, that have felt really shitty and crappy and have, had an impact on your life long term. You want to feel like you can do this and go there and explore it safely, and not feel like you have to hide, and not feel like you're going to be judged, right? But with the people pleasing, it's like, okay, holy cow, I've made the connection now. That's why I struggle with letting go of people pleasing, because when I was a child, I learned to adopt that very early on, and I've not yet been able to let go of that. I haven't been able to let go of this idea around people pleasing because I feel like I'm still unsafe. And when I feel unsafe and when I feel hypervigilant, I want to use my go-to strategy, which is people pleasing. But people pleasing is a trauma response. It's part of the fawn response. It's a way that you've kept yourself safe. So in having an awareness around that, oh my gosh, now I can see why I've struggled with people pleasing for so long. It's because it's connected to the past. It's connected to how I had to protect myself when I was a little kid. And now that I'm an adult, it's like, whoa, okay, now I've made the connection. Now I see it. Cool, great. Now what? what's the next step? What's the next piece of this puzzle? Because I don't like the way it feels to be a people pleaser. I feel like I'm not speaking my truth. I'm not having boundaries. I'm not saying no enough. I'm not catering to myself. I'm only just living to please other people. How do I then break that pattern? So that's like awareness step one. Then when you're working with a therapist, you start to come up with strategies that are going to work for you. And those are going to come with a lot of discomfort. Now, this is just one specific example. I'm just kind of taking it and running with it. And in terms of that, it's like, okay, how can I build awareness around the steps I need to take to be able to start to slowly but surely break the habit of people pleasing? Because it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, for some people, you just like rip the blindfold off and it's like, wow, okay, I'm never going to do this again. But everyone's experience is different. So then together we're talking about, all right, well, what are some of the reasons that you feel like you need to people please? Oh, I feel like I don't want to let anybody down. Okay. So then it's about like, let's start to have an awareness around the worst case scenario. Like, what's the worst case scenario if somebody doesn't like you or you let somebody down? And we go from there. But you can see how it builds. The awareness builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. But you've got to start with like level 1 base foundation awareness. Then you can go to level 2 awareness, then level 3 awareness. And then before you know it, you start to have awareness. Even long after our therapeutic journey is done together, the journey of worthiness is gone, you don't stop having an awareness around things. Personal growth and evolution never stops. It just continues. And it looks a little bit different. But what we do together and the work that we do together is we reestablish the foundation so that you can actually start to see things for what they are, as opposed to continuing to sort of be the ostrich head in the ground, which, I mean, hey, as a previous ostrich, I completely understand. Sometimes just sticking your head in the sand and not dealing with any of this stuff feels a lot better, because then you don't feel the discomfort of having to go through some of these things. And I always say, like, one of the biggest pieces or elements of fear that people have coming into working with me, or working with anybody for that matter, is what if it doesn't work? What if I start to explore these things and I just have a complete breakdown and I can't handle it? But when you're working with somebody that makes you feel really safe to be vulnerable and to have these experiences, it becomes a lot easier to bring that awareness and to shine a light on some of these things and to, decompartmentalize. Because a lot of times when you've had traumatic experiences happen in one way or another, whether they were in your childhood or whether they were in your adulthood, or you've experienced grief or things like that, in order to be able to get on to your next day, you put it in a box, you put it away, you never look at it again. But the box doesn't go anywhere. It's collecting dust. It's still there. You still feel the weight of it. You just haven't dealt with it. You haven't had the awareness of the impact that it's having in the present moment. It's just collecting dust in the background. But whether that experience continues to collect dust, or whether you actually have an awareness around, I need to look in here and I need to experience this and I need to let go of this, you gotta kind of be aware of the impact it's having. So that's why I say, like, we cannot discount the power of awareness when it comes to personal growth, development, change, transformation, empowerment, whatever you want to call it, whatever really resonates with you. Ultimately, the goal being you go from exhausted empath to empowered empath. Like, you've gotta be able to see it. And you can't discount that awareness piece, because it's so vitally important, and it never stops being important. And as you go, as I was saying, I think I lost my train of thought, or I had a trajectory, or I took myself in a spiral. But as you go along and you continue this journey of personal growth, and you continue to put yourself first, and you continue to better yourself in a way that feels in alignment with who you are, it's like you start to see things a lot quicker. Like, oh wow, now I can start to make some of these connections. I can understand, all right, what is the next thing that I want to tackle, right? Because you and I are going to do the foundational work, and we're going to strengthen that foundation for you so that you have the ability to continue to progress by looking at more challenging experiences, or by looking at, some of your patterns of behavior and why you have these patterns of behavior. You can look at them quicker and you can make connections faster. But if you continue to have the blindfold on, and I use this kind of imagery in my business and, moving forward in my branding, like removing the blindfold, because it's really powerful. Because up until this point, you probably walked around with the blindfold on, not really realizing that you were wearing a blindfold. But once you kind of remove it and you start to see things for what they are, then it becomes easier to continue to see things. So it's really, really vital to your growth and development. So never think like, your go-to is going to want to be your own guilt and shame. Like, why didn't I see this? Why did I do this? Blah, 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 blah. But feel empowered. Like, I'm seeing it now. I'm having the awareness now. And now that I can see it, I can believe it. And now that I can start making those small steps towards change. Now I can make small steps towards living the life that I want to live. Now I can start to let go of some of these things and like tap into my own self-worth, because these patterns of behavior haven't been serving me. They haven't been serving me. And you can see patterns of behavior in anything, the way you interact with friends, boundary setting or lack of boundary setting becomes a pattern of behavior. Relationships, in terms of like intimate relationships, you might realize that you continue to date the same type of people over and over and over and over and over again. You tend to attract the same type of people over and over and over again. And the more that you attract people, the wrong people for you, and the more that you don't realize what you're worth, the more you'll continue to see it over and over and over again, because there's a lesson there that you're meant to learn. And that is, I'm going to continue to attract these same set of people or same individuals until I look at and realize and break the pattern of behavior. And maybe that pattern could be, I don't feel good enough. I feel like I just need to settle, or I feel the pressure of supposed to culture saying like, I need to get married. I need to have a partnership. Like if I don't have a partner, there's something wrong with me. I can't live life on my own. And you could be, for that reason, becoming like it's almost like a turnstile, just accepting whoever comes in, because you're like, all right, well, at least I have somebody, right? But you need to understand what you bring to the table. You need to see all of your strengths. You need to be able to see what you want in a partner. You need to be able to see what your expectations are, to look at all of those things on a personal level from your own perspective before you can break the pattern of having the same types of toxic partners and really start to become very particular. And I think there's an element of scarcity too when it comes to intimate relationships, and that is also something you want to build an awareness of. Am I just accepting people into my life, and am I accepting partners into my life because I feel like there isn't anyone that's ever going to be good enough for me, or there isn't anyone that's going to be able to match me, so I just have to accept whatever comes my way because, I need a partner, or I feel lonely, right? So again, there needs to be that awareness. Like, why are we just accepting this? Why, what elements are at play here? What pieces of the puzzle have brought me to this moment where I'll take anything? So there's a lot of awareness to be had, especially around patterns of behavior. You can even have it, like this applies to anything, negative thought patterns. Before you can break a negative thought pattern, before you can break it, you need to see it. You need to understand how many times you think it. You need to become like a detective, the Sherlock Holmes of your thoughts. I call it thought hygiene, where you have to kind of take a look at your thoughts and be like, wait a minute, how long I've been thinking this? Where did this come from? Why do I believe this? Why do I continue to believe this? And what is the evidence that proves that this thought is incorrect, right? Even around, you are not your thoughts. That statement alone, having an awareness around, I'm not my thoughts. My thoughts are part of me, but they're not who I am. I mean, they're just simply these things that are on repeat that have been conditioned for me to say over and over and over again, but they're actually not true. Again, we're talking about eyes opening, seeing. You got to see it to believe it. And that's when you can really start to make progress. Your progress is going to be entirely built on your awareness and what you're willing to take a look at. It's a big moment. So again, I implore you, when you're building awareness, please, please, please let the shame and the guilt wash away. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. There are so many things that should not have happened to you, ever. You should not have had to experience them. You should not. But it is your personal responsibility. It is your personal, moment of empowerment to take your healing back, to say, I'm not going to let anything stand in my way. I'm not going to let my healing be contingent on anybody. And I realize now that I have had these moments where I felt like my healing needed to be linked to somebody else apologizing. But now that I see that, I am now going to say, no, I'm going to take my power back. I'm going to take control back, and I'm going to navigate my own healing journey. I'm going to walk the journey to worthiness because it's important to me. And now that I see it, I can't unsee it. So with that, I will leave that with you for today. If you have any questions, if you are working towards building awareness, if you're working towards your own journey to worthiness, if you have questions around the work that I do and if we might be a good fit, please let me know. I'm always here to support you in the best way that I can. But with that, I'm going to go about my day, and I will see you soon.